All right, guys, we're back. Kusama Demo Day after a short break. Hope you guys got some food, drinks, check the price of Kusama quickly. And now we are heading into the discussion around Kusama Parachains and the auctions, and on Polkadot as well, from experienced players as well as newbies. So hopefully we can answer, some technical and non-technical questions. I am Andre to host, and I'll sit in the background. And gentlemen, have fun, and Andre, get away.
Thanks. So welcome to this panel, as you said, about takes on Kusama from experienced participants and newbies. Here, as we were just talking, like nobody's really an expert, but let's say that the newbies or newbie is Calamari here because he only joined from the second round. So we have Kenny there representing. And then we have on the expert side, we have Alex Melichov from Equilibrium, and thanks for organizing this event, and Jakub Panik from HydroDX and Basilisk. And then finally, we have Jordan Burns from Parity, who is going to provide us more of a generic, I guess, take or something like that on Parachain auctions. So I guess like my first question would be to set it up, like what has been the experience of the Parachain so far? Like, is it like you expected? Were there some kind of issues with the auctions, or just like setting up the Parachains themselves? Maybe let's start with Jordan, and then we go through all the other guys.
Well, yeah. So I mean, I didn't know quite what to expect. I think like with Kusama, the slogan is always expect chaos. So there's always a bit of that in there, and I think I was surprised by how much KSM got like thrown into these initial auctions. I think that was an initial kind of shock that we saw like crowd loans yielding over hundreds of thousands of KSM, which is in fiat terms quite a bit of money. So that was surprising and also super awesome to see. So I think that was my quick take on it.
Yeah, it's definitely impressive. It's like we're talking about double digits of KSM supply locked into some of these. It's kind of amazing, actually. So yeah, like let's go to some of the experts here. So Alex, what do you think of the Parachain auction process so far?
So firstly, it's a very interesting experience, specifically on Kusama, because it's the whole different story to what we actually expected, because it's quite difficult to find out who actually hold Kusama in this space. Like if, for example, if it comes to dots, it's more obvious that bigger stakeholders are funds, investment funds, and if you have someone of them aboard, you most likely will get quite a bunch of dots in your crowd loan campaign. In terms of Kusama, the thing is that the established funds, they don't hold KSM almost at all, and it's quite difficult to figure out where the force is here and to get aligned with that. So it's kind of the first thing. Secondly, it's definitely was unexpected that that bunch of KSM tokens will be required to get the slots. So our expectation was something in the range of between 80 and 100,000 KSM. And actually it was the highest range of that. But the numbers that we have seen in terms of crowd loans of, for example, Karura, Moonbeam, Shiden was really impressive, kind of like that.
Yeah. Do you guys expect to have like similar volumes, similar prices for, let's say, for the Parachain to hold in the future as well?
Exactly, and it seems like some projects are overpaying for their slots, by the way. So I'm not sure that it's worth that.
But they're not actually paying for it, right? It's just being locked up.
You're giving out tokens, right?
I mean, like, I think Jakub, like HydroDX had this whole thing about not overpaying for the Parachain slot, right? So what's your logic there?
Well, you can kind of calculate some numbers that for the opportunity cost that you pay for the slot for the year, and from that you can get a number on how much the slot costs. And if it's too much, then probably your valuations should be around some number. So that means we didn't want to get like very high valuation in the beginning, because it would mean that probably like when people realize that these chains are or are not as valuable as we think, it will be chaos. So we wanted to start lower, and to actually our incentive scheme is quite complicated because it's two-part. Like we have the basilisk that is going down as everybody else probably, like most of the teams, and then we have HDX bonus that is only applied if we are losing. So we wanted to win, but only by small margin. So that's like our thinking, and to not overpay for the slot. That was our thesis. But we also think that everybody, like, the slots are pretty expensive, so we'll see like what happens. But I'm true, like it's great, but it's like unexpected for me at least.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, Kenny, like, you as the newbie here, like, you guys did not join the first round. Like, actually, what was the reason for that? Like, were you trying to wait and see, like, what's gonna happen, or how would it work?
Yeah, we were waiting for the, I mean, to Jakob and Alex's point, right? We were waiting for the market to become a little more rational for the parachain auctions. And so we thought, it would make more sense to start with the second batch. But then, Kilt coming in with 220K KSM. They should have just gone for the first five. And so, and for us, it was kind of, we severely underestimated the community enthusiasm as well, because our whole thing is we've got 30% allocated for this specific crowd loan, and then another 10% PLO reserve just in case we run out of everything here. But in our sort of projections, our doomsday scenario was like we'd run out of all of our 30% allocation. And so we assumed that, probably by the end of the first week, we'd probably get nowhere near like 100K KSM. And so we can just kind of, not worry too much about it. But then by the third day, we're like over 100K KSM, and now we're just we're trying to figure out how to optimize, right? Because you have to think about not just this parachain auction, but the subsequent ones, and how you can continue to reward the communities there. And so you want a sustainable model, and that's what we thought we had going into it. And so now we're trying to figure out, how to keep it as sustainable as we originally planned.
Yeah, it's actually a very, like, since you mentioned Kilt, it's a very interesting point. Like, what happens when there is like just one player that gets so far above all the others that it just like, do you still see people contributing to your own parachains that are a little bit further behind but don't really have a chance to get the next slot, for example? Or is like everything stops for that moment until the auction actually completes? What do you think, like Jakob, for example?
So in the first batch, we started a little bit late. Maybe we could have got this slot if we started sooner, but at the same time, it gives us more time for like more complete functionality in the summer. So it's not like a bad thing to be second in the second batch, because right now XCM will work and everything, so we can start fully functional. But yeah, the thing is, definitely, like it I think it depends on the community mostly. We actually didn't go to any people to gather the money required for the slot. So we only pinged our investors, and then we knew like 20,000 or 50,000 where it came from, and the rest was like what the fuck where it came from. Like just people dropped to us. So it was great to see that we have such community, and yeah, I think it will greatly depend on the community around the programs.
Yeah, thanks. By the way, there are like a few like audio issues on your end, Jakub, I think. So maybe if you can take headphones on or something, there's a little bit of like static noise. But yeah, anyways, so moving on, like we were talking about, how Kusama is much more, I guess, community centric in that sense, right? Like Alex was mentioning that you don't really know who holds Kusama, right? So what has been the experience so far in the sense of like for example, the average size of the contribution, was it smaller than you would expect, or is it like kind of still big? Who wants to go ahead? I don't know.
I can take it. So I actually was analyzing the results, like intermediate results for the previous rounds, and I even put the article which was published in Cointelegraph there. So in those projects who actually succeeded with auctions, there was a combination of retail participants and bigger stakeholders. So which actually indicates that you cannot get this slot without the support of whales, so-called, and without the retail support on another side. So it's a kind of balanced situation, right? And actually, Jack mentioned that I believe you guys are like you are not approaching of big holders besides maybe your investors, and I actually we did the same, but this is the outcome for different crowd loans are different. So for on our side, actually, we saw quite active community participation and still see that in the current rounds. But for some reason, we don't see that many whales or bigger stakeholders coming into our crowd loan specifically. Despite we have we currently have like a certain special offer for them, and we actually decided like to give them some extra rewards, and actually that was our homework after the first batch to convince these type of guys to participate in our crowd loan campaign. Hopefully this will work out, and we'll just see. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's definitely a combination of both, right? And would you say that the whales in KSM are more, I would say, grassroots? Let's say people who just like maybe had a lot of crypto and not necessarily from the, let's say, investment funds side or something like that. Maybe Jaren, you can also pitch in with that, maybe.
Yeah, well, I mean, like the catchphrase for Kusama is "expect chaos," and I think to a certain degree, traditional investors they don't like chaos. They like more sure things. So in that respect, Polkadot being the more bank-like security kind of platform would be something that they would consider more. I'm speculating here, but for those that are a little bit more adventurous and have a higher risk tolerance, I think looking at Kusama projects becomes more interesting to them. But I also think at the same time that there's still a bit of misconceptions about what Kusama actually is, and some folks still kind of see it as just a test network, and don't really see it as the canary network that it actually is, where there's real economic value trading around. And at most projects, I think basically all projects that I know of that plan on going to Polkadot will be on Kusama first. And it is, in most cases, a good opportunity to get exposure to those projects with new functionalities before they even make it to Polkadot. So I think it's prudent to get involved on Kusama, but obviously none of this is financial advice, as the typical disclaimer goes.
Yeah, this is actually like a very interesting point. Like, do you imagine that maybe Kusama Parachains and projects will actually be more popular, let's say, than the same stuff on Polkadot, essentially? Like maybe because they launch first or stuff like that?
Yeah, well, it's certainly in the short term, they're going to be more popular because they have the functionality, right? They're going to get all of the features first. I think maybe over time, once these projects become feature complete and maybe new updates start to slow down, that we will see a shift. And as they get launched on Polkadot, the bank-like security would make it a bit more attractive. But I think there will always be a spirit of experimentation and, a bit more, the wild cousin energy on Kusama. And for some people, that will just be the differentiating factor and will be the attraction. And then I can also see projects only wanting to build on Kusama, and the only opportunity you'll get to have exposure to those projects will be to go on Kusama, and they just won't be on Polkadot at all.
Yeah, are there many projects like that are Kusama only? I think there's maybe a Remark for sure, but other than that.
Also, Basilisk is like it has special functionality. It's not a copy of Hydra Build. It's like platform for new projects to like explore new functionality, and it's actually AMM chain where you can spin up any kind of AMM. We have right now, I think, 3 or 4 implementations of different curves and types, and we have also the balancer liquidity bootstrapping tools in our take from our experience. So it will be aimed to bootstrap new liquidity and then come to Hydra for the big pool. But yeah, I think like this is the way. Like the new things, exciting things are going to happen on Kusama, and then we'll see like what happens. Maybe some projects will stay on Kusama and then won't go to Polkadot.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, Kenya, what do you think? Like, what is your strategy here? Like, what's the difference between Calamari and Manta in that sense?
Yeah, so I think like one of the things that we were thinking is like, especially in the beginning, Calamari and Manta Network, I think it's kind of similar to a lot of other projects in this ecosystem where, we will be rolling out new features first on Calamari, but I think because each of these projects will have sort of their own individual governance, it could very well evolve into completely different products and functionality. So we're keeping our eyes, or not our eyes, but our minds open to that possibility. But for right now, right, like we are just planning on using Calamari as that sort of test net, or not test, but like I guess canary net's the way to think about it.
Alex, what like to finish up the roundup, like what's your take on that difference between Genshiro and Equilibrium?
So firstly, I think that building and rolling out the platform which delivers a lot of functionality, like the all-in-one platform with the whole set of various DeFi primitives in one place, will deliver certain value to both ecosystems, to Polkadot and Kusama, and obviously it will bring more diversification in terms of protocols running, DeFi protocols running here and there. And also the initial idea of rolling out Genshiro is actually similar to, I think, the purposes of other projects, just to have the Canary network where you can test out new developments and be more experimental in terms of your kind of releases and stuff, just to make sure that everything works properly and you can test it out in the production. So that's actually one of the reasons why we are launching Genshiro, and we suppose Genshiro to be again more experimental DeFi platform rather than Equilibrium, both from the perspective of assets that will be added to there and also the lineup of products that we will have up and running on Genshiro. So we think that will be again more experimental there. There will be more derivatives rolled out because the platform which we're building is consisting of the money markets and the decentralized exchange. That actually has a lot of opportunities to experiment and to build something on top of these kind of basic products that we have. So yeah, we'll see how it will work out, and I agree with Kenny that actually there is an opportunity that at some point, some governance processes will take over the initiative around insurance, will basically customize something in the product eventually.
Yeah, it's very, like, the governance aspect is also very interesting in that sense. Like, do you expect maybe that these Kusama parachains will be a little bit more freer in that sense? Maybe like a little bit more, how do you say it, like community-based distribution than their Polkadot respective?
I think
Do you
we
Jakub
already, I think we
will
already
also
see that.
add?
Yeah, I think we already see that from the perspective of crowd loans, right? Because it's more diversified in terms of participation. We see that community is pretty active around that, and actually affecting the outcome of crowd loan campaigns and deciding who actually get the slot. Yeah. And actually, in Jinchira, we are taking the approach of more decentralization as well, because the most of supply of tokens that we have in Jinchira actually supposed to be distributed to the hands of our users and supporters from the day one. So we as a project will not be holding that much tokens at all. And actually, yeah, so we are very much focused on setting up the governance processes at this point, and we expecting to be the protocol as much decentralized as we can. Do that.
Yeah, thanks. Jakub, what do you think actually for this?
Yeah, agree, and
on this?
Exactly the same thinking here. So we have like Hydra DX is running right now for almost a year. We have like 200 validators, solo chain full stake. And right now is the time. In a week or two, we will like decentralize the governance there, and also like the buzzer will be the same thing like as we launch, and test that it works properly. We will like discard sudo and run the governance, and we'll see, because Basilisk will have different. I think it will have very different holder state. I think that will be very interesting to see.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I wanted to go back a little bit into the tech aspect of it all, actually, because we've seen the first parachains, they took a while to launch. Like, I think so far only Scheiden, River, and Karoo actually enabled transfers, right? Like the remainder two are still need to do that. Do you see, like, if you were to get into the second slot, would it be faster for you to completely launch because you don't need to go through like the kinks of the parachain implementation, or would it be similar? What do you think, Jakub, for example? Or also, I mean, just go ahead. Like,
yeah. So for us, definitely, like, there was a lot of stuff that needed to be polished, and also there will be some upgrade to XCM that will allow bigger messages soon. So we feel like we're getting more functional stuff sooner than we would have if we were in the first batch.
Yeah, I think that is a part of the reason why we're doing them in batches too, right? Like, because if everybody was trying to connect at the same time, there's like a whole lot more problems that can go on. Like, these are very complex systems, and of course it's like on a case by case basis. Each parachain has its own unique way of approaching things and unique technologies. So so that's one part of it, and we've already seen like commonalities of parachains having the same problems, the same issues, and that's great that we are able to identify those and then make patches so that subsequent parachains won't have those problems coming up. That's not to say that we're always going to clear the way of all problems and it's going to be completely smooth. Again, Kusama expect chaos, but at least we'll be able to be ahead of the common problems that we've seen before. And problems in this case are good things to come across, because we'd rather face them now and find solutions for them now than later on when parachains are trying to onboard onto Polkadot. So yeah, my hope is that the new batch of Parachains will have an easier time, but the truth is there'll probably be hiccups along the way, and that's to be expected. And we'll get through them all together, and the whole ecosystem will be supported and better for it.
Yeah, I mean, if you think about it, there haven't been like that many issues in the end. Like it's just maybe a couple of days of like stopping the blockchains, but still it got solved pretty quickly, and it was just like at the beginning in the end. But anyways, Kenny, what do you think about this take? Like, would you expect Calamari to be enabled, let's say, faster than others before it?
I just don't want to make any promises. I know that on the engineering side, right, like there's still a lot of code updates being pushed, and so sometimes those new updates, it's better for the future of the ecosystem, but it also means that some of our code breaks, and we have to solve that. So I don't know what the new implementations will look like, so I don't want to promise anything. But right now, if everything stays smooth sailing, then I think that our release schedule should be fairly agile.
Yeah, Alex, what do you think?
Look, I think that we at Gentira are in a little bit different circumstances rather than any other project who is expecting to get the slot on Kusama, because literally today we decided to launch Gentira as a standalone substrate with the whole product line that we have developed so far, and there will be more releases coming over on this standalone substrate. So the thing is that when we get the slot, we'll be forced to migrate this standalone substrate into Parachain, which is kind of process, and will require a certain, so we will need to kick off from the, let's say, empty chain without kind of particular states in the beginning, and so then we need to migrate and basically through sudo apply the state that we have in the standalone substrate. I'm sure that we will able to handle that, but I think that it will be the precedential case actually, because no one did that before. But we are kind of accepting this challenge, and I think that it's definitely worth to start getting traction now rather than wait until you get the slot at some point. Given that specifically we at Gentira, we have really developed a lot, and we actually can't wait to get into production and to present that to the end users, right? So because we have almost all the lending instruments that we have been developing already implemented. We have the Curve implementation, which we have done in the close collaboration with the Curve team, and we even got the grant from Web3 Foundation for these developments already accomplished, and we're going to release that as well. So there are more interesting releases coming over, because we're currently working on the decentralized exchange, the spot markets, which will be heavily leveraging the capacity of our lending platform with respect to its margin trading capabilities. It will also introduce the portfolio margining functionality. So there's quite a lot of on our plate now, and we think that this approach that we're taking makes sense due to certain, it's not like delays, but anyways, you need to wait until firstly you win the slot, then you need to launch with Parachain. So it takes time actually.
Yeah, actually, that raises an interesting question that a personal curiosity of mine. Basically, in order to become a parachain or to bid for becoming a parachain, you have to first sign up as a parathread, which is still kind of connected to the network, right?
Yeah.
So I'm kind of curious, why aren't projects doing more launches as parathreads first, and then once they get on board to parachains, it's just business as usual. Nothing really changed for us. We were live before, we're still live. We just don't need to pay for it right now. Have you guys any of you decided against this or for this, or is it technically difficult to do?
I think that parathreads will be expensive to run actually, and it will be quite sensitive for the end users who are considering these applications for their operations. Just my take on that.
Yeah. So a couple of things there is parathreads. aren't as functional right now as Parachains are. So that's one thing, and I think for all the projects that are on this call, it makes sense for them to be Parachains. The main difference between Parachains and Parathreads is like the availability to the network, right? The Parachains will have constant connectivity, and they can submit their proofs of validity as they see fit all the time, basically within every 12 seconds, right? Whereas Parathreads will have to pay every time that they want to submit something to the main chain, and so for these projects like DeFi projects and smart contract projects, like you want to have that availability to put through transactions fairly quickly, right? So I think it doesn't quite make sense for these projects to be Parathreads. But I guess like the example that we use is like if you want to update the weather, if you're like a weather parachain or something like that, then you don't need to update it every block, but you could update it once an hour, and for those purposes, you can just be a Parathread and pay and bid every time that you want to submit something to the chain, essentially.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't expect like Parathreads to be quite so expensive, I guess. But yeah. Okay, that's a good point.
I think one other really quick point is like with the parachains and the parachain auctions, you're able to, especially on Kusama, right? You're able to get your tokens into the hands of lots of community members very quickly. And I think that's a really key point to start enabling effective governance. And so, I think it's probably best to enable effective governance first before you enable like things like token transfer and all that other stuff, because it can become a problem. It's a little bit centralized without it. And so, having that sort of community building through the parachain auctions itself, I think is a really effective tool.
Actually, that's also a very interesting point in that, like covering like for a newsletter around like for DeFi polls, right? All these parachains, the auctions, etc. It really kind of feels like a sports league, right? Like there are teams that are in the big leagues, there are teams that are in the kind of smaller leagues running promotion circles, And like one thing that I found, for example, in some of these leagues is that once a team falls off, like it's not in a big league anymore, like it loses all of its fans, loses all of its support, just because people don't really care about it anymore, right? So how do you see like that risk perhaps of not making it to be a parachain quickly enough, or like do you see that as a fundamental issue? Like, I don't know, who wants to go first here?
Sorry, I lost you on the last part of that question.
No, I was just saying, like, how do you see this parachain auction process? Like, do you think it's like a make or break thing for the project, or would you be able to kind of survive without it even?
Survive without the parachain auction.
Yeah. Like without making it to a parachain.
Honestly, like, I think from a technical standpoint, right, the parachain auctions are irrelevant because the product itself is designed by the engineering team, not the community. But in terms of the actual like awareness and usage and the subsequent KPIs along with that, I think the parachain auctions are critical, right? Because I know like, for example, I don't know, when you're doing like a DEX, right? Like the total value locked, right? And just like general DeFi products, right? This isn't a factor of engineering or man hours from like strategy and biz ops. This is a factor of community, and so it kind of boils back down to like how I think effectively can you start like getting people to know about you. And so I think from that perspective, right, a parachain auction is definitely very exciting. I mean, I know like Donnie's in this crowd right now, and I've been seeing him text, but like he didn't even know about us until like 2 days ago. But yeah, I mean, like, we're not that great at marketing, but I think that's been a big win for us.
Cool.
Alex, what do you think?
Look, I think at the end of the day, like speaking again from the perspective of DeFi builder, I can say that at the end of the day, everybody will be counting just TVL and the actual user transaction on your platform. And at this point, it doesn't matter whether you're a parachain or not. Obviously, eventually it will make a lot of sense to be parachain, because you will be able to get the advantage to take the advantage of the platform itself, like to get access to bridges and all other parachain projects that might potentially interchange value with your DeFi protocol. But again, at this point, this is very early days. Right, it's not necessarily that you need to get parachains right away. If you can launch things as just standalone substrate, it already makes sense, because you will start getting traction. You will start getting value locked in your protocol. You start user acquisition and all this kind of stuff. So it really eventually will depend on how valuable your developments are, right? So how interesting your protocol to the end users, and whether you deliver certain value to them, no matter whether you have parachain slots or not. That's just my consideration on that.
Yeah, one thing that I would add to the conversation here is, like, yes to all the things that these gentlemen have already said. In terms of like the community, it's not just like the retail community or like people generating like hype and stuff like that. It's also like the developer community, and I think very importantly the infrastructure community, like the people that are going to be validators or collators for your network, right? And so like any chain is can be a standalone substrate chain, like Genshiro is going for. But the main problem is building up enough of a validator set in order to support that network in a secure way. And so that's something that's super great about Kusama and Polkadot, is that the shared security model where we can all kind of benefit from the same validator set. And then you just need to worry about bringing collators over, which in many regards is a little bit easier and less of an overhead. And so building that side of the community is super important. And I think that is where you might see some resistance in terms of TVL for like a DeFi project, is if you don't have like a large enough security layer, then you'll see some trouble expanding your TVL there.
Just a quick remark on what just Darren brought up. So I can say that based on our conversation with validators who are already validating blocks on Kusama and Polkadot, they're pretty much accessible. And if you wish to run your standalone chain, it's not a problem to approach them all, and most likely they will support you and start validating blocks. For example, in our case, we do have on board quite a lot of very reputable and known validators. Even Hobby Pool just recently joined the pool of our validators, and I think that it will allow us to bootstrap the network in pretty safe way, and at least the validation of blocks will be working smoothly.
Yeah, I think like probably the bigger allure of Parachains is like the cross-shard communication, right, and all the usability of all the bridges. So that's definitely an important aspect. Jakub, I guess you had some issues with your connection, right?
Well, my computer randomly restarted, so I'm back.
Yeah, well, I mean, we're kind of getting really close to the end, so I'd just like to add one final, take from you. So we were talking about how if you kind of fail the parachain auctions, let's say, like you do lose out on something. Like, do you think that it will be a major issue if, like, for example, let's say HydroDX did not succeed in getting a parachain slot like within the next few months or something? And like, how would you react in that sense? Would you think that the project is like is not doing so well at that point, or would you just continue building?
Well, we believe that we will get a parachain slot. It depends just when, but If not, then we have some ideas about bridging to Ether or even Polkadot. We thought about this before. While we were waiting on the XCM stuff to get completed, we were like thinking how to make this faster. And but we stopped working on it since like everything is going very fast. So we were not expecting like the first batch to be as soon as it happened. So it's great. By the way, I randomly like checked the balances, like the unlocking of Kusama today because somebody asked me to, and it looks like there is like 2,000 people with almost 500,000 KSM unlocking right now. So it will still, I think, be interesting.
Ooh. It's all from all the people who bid from previous Parachains, right?
Yeah, we'll see. Yeah.
We'll see. Well, good luck to you all. Then maybe you can overtake Kill after all. You know, there's still, I think, a few days of potential auction period. So, well, the time for our panel has come to an end. So thank you for joining, and it's been a really nice conversation. I learned a lot, and I hope the audience was entertained as well. So, thank you, Alex and the Equilibrium team, for organizing this.
Thank you, gentlemen, for joining us.
Bye. Bye,
Thanks.
guys.
See ya.
Bye-bye.
Bye, guys.